Welcome back, everybody. This is where the Audi Sport Quattro starts to get interesting. And this is one of the hardest things that my mind has had to come around of. How am I going to do this? How am I going to make this thing work for the drivetrain? Because what we're doing is we're filling the body, putting the drivetrain in. I'll probably have to go, put the drivetrain in, put the fuel system and suspension, and then go back around, do the body and final fit. Our major stepping stone right now is actually what do we have to make this thing work? And what would you have possibly to make it work? I mean, from your donor cars that you're going to build the car up. That's the big thing. Well, we started with a 4000 Quattro, then we had a Coupe GT and one of the Audi 5+5, and we used, for the dashboard, we got the Audi 5000 Quattro. So I decided to use the gearbox because the ratios are very good for cruising and for just, it's just an all-around much better gear ratio that's in the car for a turbocharged car. Much better than the UR Quattros. Then I looked at it going, oh, the differential is completely different. It's about another 11 inches longer. Then I started looking at the drive shaft, the 4000 drive shaft. And I'm looking at it, starting to do some measurements, and I think it's going to be interesting what I find out, and you're going to have to hold on to that. So, what I did was when I originally built the frame for this Mojave, what can I call it? Dump run car is about the only thing I can think. It's a 1969 or 70, I can't remember which one. Citroen plaster body. I picked up at an auction for $200. And yes, this is factory. It's plastic. It's a garbage can, and it's more rust than plastic, but whatever. It's gonna be a stupid go-kart thing to drive around in. What I did do is I installed the Audi rear suspension because I wanted a lockable differential, a rear lockable differential. Now I need that differential for the Sport Quattro. So I'm not going to get much into this. Let's just get on with it, and I'm going to tacked it. I only tack welded it in just in case I need to cut out, and guess what? I'm cutting it out. So let me grab the grinder. The grinder. Let me cut this thing off. I'll pull the body off, and we'll just zip this thing off, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with the rear end of the Sport Quattro. I think they put the sport grips in for crash protection. I believe they call this a tube frame exotic from France. Like lawn furniture. God. I really didn't look at the frame. It is kind of neat, Well, diff is free. Let's pull it over there and I'll show you the difference of between this and the 4000 Quattros. These are the components we have to work with. This is the differential from the 5000, and this is the differential from a 4000 Quattro. I did use this in my Quattro, and as you can see, it smashed because I crashed it in Washington. Yeah, just one of my defining moments in my life, Oops. Time to go to the bar. Now you just have to grin and bear it and just keep on going, whatever. Okay, what we're doing, we have, I don't know if that shot will say if they have a drive shaft over there, but this 5000 diff is much longer. It has a stabilization bar right across here, and it has a single mount back there. Same thing, but they're just orientated different. What I need to do is to figure out exactly the measurement from here to there and the difference, because this one's longer. How much shorter is the drive shaft going to be? Because the shorter the drive shaft, the better. What we got to do is measure it. On this one, this fin right here goes pretty much to the center of this. If you put the tape measure right here, it's on the center. On the other side, it's not on the center. So if I use just a regular framing square, sorry, my knee pad here, and I put it absolutely flat against the flange. What I want to do is measure that exactly from here, from the inner part, to this framing square. And it's exactly 310 millimeters. So, you handy dandy write this down. And you see I'm using metrics, not Americanese type measurement, standard measurement, because to me, deducing the shorter distance is much easier in metrics and much more precise. When you get into 11/64ths and all, and it's just like, yeah, it's a pain in the ass, you know. I want it to be much more accurate than that. Same with this. If you take a look at the fin, it's the same orientation where if you have the fin, if you go on the inside of it, it's pretty much exactly where the center line is there. So we just run a frame square here. And and you have to make sure it's flat on both ends for the framing square. And tight up against it. 530 millimeters. So you have 530 millimeters. So the difference is 220 millimeters. Then you have to add the 320 millimeters, which is 540 millimeters shorter for the drive shaft. Now let's measure the drive shaft and figure out how we're going to cut it. Here we have the drive shaft from the 4000 Quattro. Pretty crusty, but you know, we're chopping it up. Who cares? Needs a center bearing. They both did. This one had to be cut out. I could pull it off. No biggie because it's a 325i E30 BMW center bearing. They all use the same one. I replaced them before. I had two framing squares set up with two pieces of metal just holding them straight up and down. The framing square is resting on the top of the yoke, not the CV shaft, the CV joint. The CV joints move in and out for play because when the engine moves up and down, the rear engine moves up and rear differential moves up and down, you need that flex. So we have to, the drive shaft has already been given to us for the proper length in between a standard car. Now we need to measure the distance for this in between the two. We go there to there. And let me get an exact reading here. I'm trying to avoid any bowing in the tape to make sure that we have exactly 1,578 millimeters. 1,578. And you minus the 540, you have 1,038 millimeters for what the yoke to yoke is going to be. Okay. We have this yoke right here. We're going to go to this first line. Let me bring the camera down and I'll show you the line. We have to minus this yoke for the total length of the drive shaft is going to be 1,038 millimeters. Well, if it is to be a 1,038, in order to cut it, we have to decrease the length of that 1,038 by, and I'm going to this line right here, not this line right here, because if I have to put it in the lathe and cut it down, that's where I want to go, because it looks like this is just a receiver, and also the yoke goes all the way down here, so it should self-center. So what we're looking at is we are looking at exactly 125 millimeters. So if we take out 125 millimeters from the 1,038 millimeters, we have 913 millimeters. 913 millimeters is what we need for the length of the drive shaft in order for this to accept into it in order to be the correct length. And let's measure that out. That way, I'm not going to mark it just yet. What I'm going to do is clean this all around. And I'm going to put a punch and punch it so I can get my tubing cutter on this and it won't wiggle or anywhere. So I can cut it in a really good circle, get rid of the rest of the drive shaft, bring the yoke down, and we'll do it that way. Here is where I set the square. This is the yoke. This is the CV joint. The CV joint moves in and out. This yoke has to be flush right here in order to get a correct measurement. That's what we're doing. So we need this flush before we measure. That should be clean enough for me to get my tubing cutter to go around it without it, notching off to one side. So let's throw it in the pipe vise that I pulled out of storage, and we'll get this thing cut up. And as you can see, all the weights and everything were rusting right off anyway, so we're going to have to rebalance it. That was the reason why I used this one, because you have to rebalance it after you do this. That's it. If you ever get a chance, I found this off of Craigslist, 25 bucks or something like that. Came with all the piping and all that stuff. It's an old one. They work phenomenal. One thing I always have is my can of oil, so I can oil every single piece here. Because after you clean it up and oil it, it works really, really good. Well, that's stable. I'm going to go get my tubing cutter, because we have our marks right there, and let's cut the tubing off. Here are the 3 marks we lined up. Here's my tubing cutter, and it should be just barely big enough to fit this. And same thing, oil a little snot out of everything. You'll you'll appreciate that in the long run, just for speed wise. Oh, barely fits. Now, the only thing you have to be kind of concerned with is the indentation. When this tubing cutter cuts, it cuts the ridge around, and what happens is the pipe itself folds in. So what I'm going to do is just take a small hammer and fold it back out. When you're done, I'm not going to ream it out. I just want to pop it back out. So when I do that, the yoke it'll slide right in. Okay, when you want to find the mark right here, and I'm trying to make as good a mark as possible, and do it slowly. Because you also have this ridge right here along this tubing cutter, and just follow that. And I don't want to deviate from it when I go underneath where I can't see the cutting wheel. And with the irregularities inside with all the rust and stuff like that, it'll bounce around. So just do it slow. Now we have the groove all set in. It was a slow process to begin with, but we have the groove. Now we can start spinning it so it won't walk out of the groove, and you still have to be very careful. I wonder how thick these things are. They don't sound thick. They don't feel that they're very, very thick. Wow, for being a 35-degree day here in New Hampshire, it's starting to get warm. Timber! Here it is. As you can see, that tubing cutter, here, that tubing cutter makes an indentation right there. And that's, actually it didn't spread it too much, so I'm just going to use a die, just quickly zip it instead of pounding it back out. I think it's going to be fine. We stay right on the dots, and it looks pretty round to me. We'll get it on there and just tack it in, because I'm probably going to leave it unwelded for the radiator shop. Not sure yet. I'm not sure if they want to do that or not, but as long as they can balance it, that's all I would care about. I'll take the weights off, but Sport Quattro drive shaft. Here's what it looks like. I just have to take these two ends and get it off. But I have to make sure that yoke is there so I can weld it onto it. See, I'm trying to find out which way they did it, and it looks like they used this outer shell as a part for this to slip on. So I can cut a little bit more and take that little chip out. I should be able to tap around here and pull it out. I gotta go put this in the vise. Next thing, we have to clean up the metal that's in here, just the ridge, and put the yoke on, or tack in the yoke. Off camera, it was miserable. It was awful. It was not what I expected. I expected a yoke to come down with a sleeve, go right in there. This is not working. Let me show you. They must have had a jig when they put everything on, because it was just a straight cap that goes right onto the tube, and they pressed it or welded it or did something to it. I couldn't tell. What I did do is I put this in my lathe. It's one thing, I'm trying to do this without having to do any special tools. You know, having a lathe is great. Picked up inexpensive little South Bend. Works great, you know, works really good. I pulled the CV joint off. That was nothing. I turned it down, and once this is cleaned off, it should go right in there. Is the drive shaft going to work? Ooh, 50-50. Don't know. It might not. It might have to be, I might have to have a whole brand new one made. That's the only thing. Because I was expecting it to have much more of a yoke to go in there where it would center itself. I'm not really sure it's going to center itself with just me turning it down and giving it a ridge. And it's, you know, that's correct. And when I get this thing done, it's going to fit in there and it should be correct. But I'm just going to tack it and leave it to the drive shaft shop. There's nothing much I can do. So let me just clean this up, get the welder over here, tack it, put the CV joint back on, and you know, we're off and running. At least we got something here, you know. So let me just do that. We're not trying to go anything inside, we're just trying to get the burrs off. That's the only thing we're trying to do. See? Fits right on. It looks decent. It looks decent. But whether or not, I mean, because when you spin it, it's not wobbling around, and it's going right in there. I'm going to tack it. Let's see what happens, you know. You know, I just don't know. We'll see. Let me just pop this in and weld her on. All right, the big thing is that we need to keep this absolutely flat. Like this. There can't be any deviations in it, because it's absolutely all the way around, pretty, you know, right there. And check out the way it is. Fitting in really nice, but whether or not it's going to work is another thing. Well, a $250 ship box lathe really helps. Let's see what happens. And I want to keep pressure on this just so it doesn't move at all. And if I can get enough tack all the way around, it's just going to hold it so it won't flip about. What is that? Well, I decided to tack it by fully welding it. Jeez, what am I thinking? Alright, well, whatever. If we got to make a new drive shaft, let's make a new drive shaft. That's just what it is. Weld it all on. I'll clean up the splines, and then I'll put the CV back on it, and then we'll start putting in the rear suspension, or putting in the rear diff, and bolt that up to it, and bolt up the transmission, see where it all fits. Right there. I don't believe it. It's the exact length I need. Alright, better be lucky than good. Let's get that CV joint on, and we'll get this thing in the car. We'll hook it up to the differential, and we'll use a jack and jack the thing into the car. Let's see where the mounts go. Just have to put the circle on it, and let's bolt it up to the rear diff, and we'll slide underneath the car. The main thing is just to get it tight up. We're not re-driving the thing, so who cares? As long as we have it tight, now we can put it on the jack and lift it up into the chassis. Hold it with the jack. Bring this, bolt it to the front. I'll put a jack stand underneath the drive shaft in order to basically imitate a drive shaft bearing. And then we got to do the rear subframes. That's always interesting. You're probably wondering why I put the center bearing here instead of back here where it normally is. The reason why, I want the center bearing in between here. 2 seat rails, much stiffer location. I can brace in between here. I'm much happier having it there for stability wise than anything else. And I'll show you, let's go put the rest of the differential, at least up kind of into the chassis. Well, we definitely have to do some trimming, especially where the front, where the CV joint is, right up inside here. Kind of thought we had to. Let me get a die grinder, cut that, so we can start leveling up the drive shaft. I have to trim this stuff right here also, some of the supports, the original supports from the 5+5. Well, not looking bad. Looks kind of cool. Now we have the diff up here. This is the mounting system for the diff from the 5000. This is the other half of this that bolted to the 5000. I just cut off. This I'm going to weld right to here. The differential needs to come down the back a little bit, which is not bad. But I do have to cut the CV joint on the tunnel because I didn't cut the tunnel all the way down. You have to cut more of it up there so I can raise that up a little bit and lower the rear. Because if you take a look here, we need full movement of the shafts, and we don't have it. So I need to lower the rear diff a little bit. That's not bad. Then we have to move the jack stands, this jack stand out back, or move it out back, so I can start fitting up the subframe, and we'll go cut the subframe, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Here's the problems that we have that we need to cut. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right up here, and fold the metal up. It'll give me a little bit more metal to weld to the tunnel. And right here is the old supports, the torsional supports if you want to call it, for the 5+5. That we're pretty much moving over to here as a center bearing support. So let me just cut this stuff off and we'll get this stuff done. For that. The exhaust mount is right here. Two-wheel drive shitbox. All right, well, when in doubt, cut it out. Well, let's see. Has to be aligned up a little bit better. Maybe I can come down just a teeny bit. This thing was a pain in the ass. But we'll just weld up the rest of the stuff. Let's see if I can arrange it a little bit. Drive shaft looks fairly equal. I mean, yeah, it's still wobbly around here. I mean, I haven't attached the mount yet. That side looks pretty close. The drive shaft looks fairly equal in between all the ridges. This is up here. Right here is the two-wheel drive exhaust mount, because you have to remember, they didn't care about four-wheel drive because they didn't have it. Cut that. I have to re-weld all this in, but yeah, whatever. Just something I have to do. As it looks right here, as you go into the really narrow section, it'll easily handle the drive shaft. So I'm not too worried about that, putting the tunnel in. What we have to do next is get the subframe trimmed up and so we can put the suspension on and see and make sure everything actually works up and down. I just tested the drive shafts and they look pretty. I mean the half shafts, and they look pretty good. Let's get on to doing the drive shaft. I'm sorry. Let's get on to doing the subframe, and that should be a fairly simple thing, really. I think. Let's go. Undercoating, blah, blah, blah. I think that'll work. At least temporary. Here is the 4000 Quattro rear subframe. Got a bunch of them, so I don't mind cutting it up. This is the subframe that attaches to the 5000. The only thing we have to do is drill a hole for it to be received. Whether or not I'm going to have to put an indentation on it or not, I don't know, or pound this down. What we have to do is cut this mount, and these two mounts off. I was think about using a front subframe, but the only problem is these. These are the these are the tie rod ends for the rear struts. I don't want to mess around measuring and cutting and all that stuff. I'd much rather just hack these things off and throw it up in there and drill a hole where it needs to be. You know, I'm trying to do this as easy as possible. I've already screwed up by having to use the lathe on the drive shaft. You know, it's like, oh well. But let me get the grinder. I'm going to cut these two transmission mounts off because I'm not going to use it. And we're going to cut this transmission mount off, not going to use it. And we'll dump it up into the, we'll bolt it up. And then we'll figure out where we need to drill the hole for the rear mount on the 5000 differential. That wasn't bad. Let's throw this in the car. Subframe is up. We have to cut a piece of the other subframe out in order to make it mount, to make that work. It's easier than actually drilling the other hole in the subframe. It should be fairly straightforward, nothing bad. One thing is, we have the 5000 shafts, and I don't think I mentioned it, the reason why I wanted it because of the wider track. This is what I wanted. These control arms, we're going to have to extend out. Yeah, see what happens. I mean, if we make new ones, we make new ones, but at the very end game, it'll be tubular control arms, but not to get this thing running. Just to get it running, we need to extend the control arms out, plate them, just so it rolls. That's it. Next time, we're going to be putting the mount on the rear of the subframe, and we're going to be doing hubs, or converting the 4000 Quattro rear struts to 5-lug hubs. And I'll show you without that. It took me a little bit of mix and matching, but, you know, hey, that's all it takes. You know, yeah, does this work? Does this work? Well, let's see. So just remember, I'm nothing special. You can do it. I'm just a hillbilly recycler. That's all I'm doing. Have a great day, and I hope to see you again. Thank you. Appreciate it.